I want to introduce our two speakers, and I think you know who they are. One of which is the marvellous Richard Horton, who won our first ever blog prize. He was a serving policeman. The Times outed him, but he kept his job. He's just spent 6 months back in the blue, back on the front line of policing again. Those blogs have disappeared, but he didn't lose his job, so there was an upside and a downside. And we're going to really talk about, and Jack Knight, who was one of our judges this year.
Jack of Kent.
Sorry, Jack of Kent, right, lots of Jacks. Was one of our judges this year and took it and was shortlisted last year. And I think that what was really interesting about this particular snapshot, and I think I'd like you to both start on that. This particular snapshot, so this is now the third year, that you saw that blogging was developing all sorts of things about it. That there is no one thing called blogging. It's got certain characteristics, but it's emerging and developing in a really quite interesting, quite fast way. And I think that actually Richard and Jack represent one kind of what you might call public service blogging. They're kind of fulfilling a public service. And Richard very much, I was very aware when his blogs were up, was filling in a space that journalism no longer does, which is local reporting of legal cases. It was literally in an incredibly valuable way, no doubt because the police are actually rather angry, and we as citizens ought to be angry because legal cases are really important. Journalism has given up on that kind of reporting. He was meaning to. So I don't know. Anyway, they are both tremendous, and Richard we're really proud of Richard, and we were even prouder when we managed to see the Times sort of off.
Yeah.
So, you know. And I thought I'd get them to say something for 15, 20 minutes, and then we'll let them back to the floor.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I haven't prepared a great deal. I guess what I was thinking as I looked through the long list this year, and looked through to see what all the entries were going to be this year, that there was an awful lot of quality in there, and I wasn't that surprised that they had it found difficult to get it down to less than 22, because there are a lot of very good writers, and there are good writers in there who haven't made the long list. Some very good writers there who haven't made it. I'm sure there was a lot of discussion around that when we did it.
Yes.
What I said last year when I was judging the prize, at that time that we were still, I believe, and I said this to people here tonight, quite short levers in the world. Blogging, so when I was doing blogging, I was writing. I was the husband in the shed doing that writing stuff, and it didn't feel like it was making a great deal of difference, but it was something I had to do, and if people liked it and valued it and enjoyed reading it, well, that was fine. That was okay for me. So it's a very personal exercise. I noticed in the long list this year we have more professional writers. I noticed from the long list and the short list of last year, a good number of those people that have been long listed and short listed have gone on to make, if not a full career, then at least something of a living out of their writing as well, which I think is interesting. We're almost blogging like the MySpace for journalism. It's the journalism what MySpace was for the music industry. Perhaps you can do some talent spotting in there. You can see some people that are gifted, talented writers that have a particular perspective on the world that may be interesting, and there wouldn't be traditionally a way of that coming out other than by getting involved with the mainstream media. This way you can do your thing, and if a larger platform presents itself, then it's there for you to be able to use it. And it has been quite gratifying to see a number of the people that we picked out last year have gone on to bigger and brighter platforms or more spotlights. I'll get back to the short levers thing. I think perhaps the levers are starting to get a little bit longer. When we look at the work, and it was one thing that commended David's work to us last year, through the blog we could see somebody who was actually trying to change the way that law works within the society, and a commentary that was so incisive and correct that it has started to move a particular area of law, and that coming from and being given weight by what was there in the blog. I found that interesting, that that particular lever seems to be going a bit longer, and I think this year the levers again have grown that little bit longer. Blogging's perhaps a little bit more important than it was 2 or 3 years ago. There is still, in my personal view, an element of the blogging world that is sort of mirror box commentariat. I don't see any of that in the long list, but if I read again that David Cameron has a large forehead, that Ed Balls blinks a lot, there is that element with the blogging and that it's just there all the time. It's a cliche, but there are a good number of people now that are writing outside that cliche, outside the... When I was writing, there was quite a small clique of big name bloggers, if you will, and it was all very self-referential and very knowing. And I think we're breaking out of that now. I'm not sure if Guido Fawkes writes all his own stuff anymore. Ian Dale seems to have knocked it on the head.
Shame.
Yeah, so it goes. It's just, there are more authentic voices coming through, if you will. There are also people who say what they have to say and then get the heck out of Dodge. And you'll see the blogosphere littered with those. Mine is one of them, it's still out there. Somebody's reposted pretty much all the posts up there. I said what I wanted to say about policing, about the way policing is politicised, and then I got out of turn because I didn't want to repeat myself. I didn't want to become some other commentator firing back on news stories and saying, irrelevant bits and pieces, or seems to me to be relevant. Say what you've got to say, say it, say what you said. That's it. There's nothing left after that. So generally, that's my view on blogging. It's a personal activity. I would like to see more grassroots and local blogging. I think it's quite powerful for that. You can read all you like about sort of big national policy and things that change the way that we live at a national level. I haven't seen so much blogging going on around local issues, around sort of what goes on around local councils, what goes on around particular local causes. I'm sure those blogs may be out there, but I think that's an important space that can be filled. Because it's not being filled in local journalism. There isn't that view on local issues. There isn't somebody sort of monomaniacally concentrating on those issues often. A blog's a way by which that can occur. It's a sifting process for me as well. As you read through, so reading through the list, as I said today, there was some of the stuff on there. Frankly, I felt like burning the internet down, so I didn't have to read any more of it. There are some blogs out there, but people got a right to write them, and I've got a right not to have to read them. That in a nutshell, if I was going to give you my off-the-cuff thoughts on blogging, it would be that. It's a personal activity. It's a short lever, but it's getting longer. It's interesting, I think, recently David got on to that it is starting to merge with the mainstream. We're getting more mainstream journalists that are blogging, more bloggers that are becoming mainstream journalists, and they're starting to become quite similar creatures in that way, except that bloggers self-publish. We don't rely on a big overhead, we don't rely on a big organisation, we just use free tools to write what we write. That's how blogging is.